When Jesus stood before Lazarus' tomb, he didn't ask God for a miracle, he didn't plead, and he didn't bargain. Yet most of us are taught that prayer is exactly that, begging a distant God for a favor. If your prayers feel like echoes in a void, it's not because your faith is weak, but because the actual method Jesus used has been lost. He wasn't begging, he was aligning. Today we're revealing the internal map that turns a desperate hope into a finished reality. It's time to close the door and reclaim the power of the inner room. If you have ever spent your nights on your knees, pouring your heart out into the darkness only to be met with a deafening silence, you are part of the 99%. You've done everything you were told to do. You've been faithful, you've been humble, you've followed the rituals, yet your life remains unchanged. The sickness persists, the debt grows, the peace you were promised feels like a distant shadow. And when the miracle doesn't manifest, the world gives you the standard answers. They tell you, maybe it's not God's will. They say maybe you just need more faith. Or worse, maybe He is testing you. These answers are meant to comfort, but they often leave you feeling more abandoned than before. They suggest that God is a fickle judge, deciding who is worthy and who isn't based on some hidden criteria you can never fully meet. But here is the truth that almost no one has the courage to tell you. The void isn't out there. The void is in the method. Most religious traditions have conditioned us to pray from a posture of lack. We approach the divine as beggars at a high gate. We plead, we bargain. We list our miseries as if God had somehow forgotten them. But I want you to notice the energy behind that act. When you beg for healing, your entire being is focused on the presence of the disease. When you plead for provision, you are vibrating with the fear of poverty. You are speaking from a state of total separation. You are here and God is somewhere out there. You are wanting and God is possessing. This gap, this perceived distance, is the reason the power does not flow. It is a fundamental misalignment of frequency. You are trying to broadcast a signal of abundance while your station is tuned to desperate need. The source does not respond to your words, it responds to your state of being. Stop asking God to change your circumstances from the outside in. Stop treating the Creator like a vending machine that requires a specific amount of faith to operate. It's not that God isn't listening, it's that you are speaking into a vacuum of your own making. The reason the miracle stopped is not because the age of miracles is over. It's because we lost the manual. We kept the words, but we threw away the mechanics. We kept the hope, but we forgot the alignment. Jesus didn't have more faith than you in the way we've been taught to think about it. He had a different method. He didn't stand outside the tomb hoping for a response. He stood in a state where the response was already the only reality. If you want to move beyond the echo, you have to stop talking to a God you imagine is far away. You have to realize that the silence isn't a no. The silence is an invitation to go where the talking ends and the alignment begins. It's not about how hard you pray, it's about where you are praying from. To understand the method of Jesus, we must first unlearn everything we think we know about the inner room. When Jesus gave his instructions for prayer in Matthew 6, he used a word that has been stripped of its revolutionary power by centuries of flat translation. The word is Tameion. In most Bibles, you'll see it translated as a closet or a bedroom. You were told it means privacy, finding a quiet corner in your house where no one can see you. But Tameion is not a piece of home architecture. In the ancient world, a Tameion was a treasury, it was a vault. A secret chamber located deep within a building where the most precious valuables were kept under lock and key. Jesus wasn't giving you a lesson in privacy. He was giving you a map to an interior dimension. He was saying that inside you, behind the noise of your personality, beneath the layers of who you think you are, there is a treasury of infinite power, a place where the you that is afraid and the Father, that is source, are no longer separate. But to enter this vault, you have to follow a specific protocol. You have to close the door. Closing the door doesn't mean locking a wooden gate. It means shutting down the world of the senses. It means closing the door to the version of you that is obsessed with the problem. Closing the door to the identity that is defined by lack. Closing the door to the mental chatter that tells you why your prayer won't work. In the Tameion, the boundary between the self and the source dissolves. You aren't there to ask for a treasure. You are there to realize that you are the treasury. But here is where most people get discouraged. You might think, I am a busy mother, or I spend my mornings in stressful traffic. I don't have a quiet room. I don't have a sanctuary. Listen closely. The Tameion has no borders. It is a frequency of the heart, not a location on a map. If you can find stillness in a quiet cathedral, that is beautiful. But if you can find it while your hands are in dishwater or while your car is crawling through a city jam, that is where the real power lives. When you are driving to work, your car can become your Tameion. You don't need to close your eyes to the road, but you can close your mind to the judgments of the world. When you are at your desk, you can seal the door against the anxiety of the deadline. You aren't leaving the world. You are bringing the kingdom into the world. The method of Jesus doesn't require you to escape your life. It requires you to change where you are living from. The vault is always open to you. It is only a breath away. It is a moment of deciding to stop the talking, stop the wanting, and start the alignment. Right here, right now. Behind the noise of your life, the treasure is waiting for you to notice it. Now I want you to go deeper into the scene at the tomb of Lazarus. Imagine the setting. Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. The air is thick with grief, the smell of decay, and the absolute finality of death. Everyone is crying. Everyone is looking for a miracle. And then Jesus speaks, but listen closely to what he says. He doesn't say, "Father, please, if it be your will, bring him back to life." He doesn't beg for a change in the circumstances. Instead, John 11 records him saying, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." Notice the tense, past tense. He is giving thanks for a result that has not yet appeared to the physical eyes. He is speaking as if the miracle is already a finished fact, while the man is still a corpse behind a stone. This isn't just a religious story. This is a masterclass in what I call presenting the future. You see, most of us wait for the evidence before we offer the thanks. We wait for the healing to feel the health. We wait for the money to feel the abundance. But Jesus knew something that modern science is only now beginning to uncover. This is not speculation, it is mechanics. When you pray from a state of asking, your brain registers a state of lack. It focuses on what is missing. And here is the secret. What your brain focuses on, it magnifies. Modern neurobiology calls this the activation of the Reticular Activating System, or the RAS. Think of your RAS as a filter. If you are constantly pleading for help, your RAS is programmed to scan your environment for more reasons to need help. It filters for lack. It filters for struggle. But when you pivot, when you adopt the past tense gratitude of Jesus, you are literally hacking your own biology. By giving thanks for the miracle before there is physical evidence, you are telling your brain that the objective has already been met. This shift is biological. It moves you out of survival mode, a state dominated by cortisol, the stress hormone that locks down your intuition and creativity. Instead, gratitude triggers the release of dopamine and oxytocin. It lowers your cortisol. It shifts your entire nervous system into a state of creation. In this state, your brain stops looking for problems and starts recognizing the frequency of the solution. Jesus wasn't performing a magic trick outside that tomb. He was operating a law of consciousness. He understood that the invisible realm of cause is more real than the visible realm of effect. By thanking the Father in advance, he was collapsing the future into the present moment. He was aligning his internal state with the reality he intended to see until the outer world had no choice but to respond. The question is, why were you never taught that prayer is a mechanism of neuro-alignment? Why were you told to beg when the Master showed you how to command through gratitude? It's because the past tense requires you to step out of your ego and into the power of the inner room. If this method is so fundamental, if it is the very engine behind the miracles of Jesus, then we have to ask the most uncomfortable question of all. Why are you only hearing this now? Why wasn't this the very first thing you were taught? The answer isn't found in a hidden conspiracy, but in a tragic shift in history. It is what I call the industrialization of faith. You see, in its earliest days, the path Jesus described was a contemplative one. It was practiced in small, intimate communities that understood the inner room. They knew that the Tameion was the only place where power was born. But as Christianity moved from these quiet gatherings into the halls of power, as it became the official religion of an empire, the focus shifted. You can't systematize silence. You can't standardize interior development for millions of people. An empire needs order. It needs uniformity. It needs rituals that can be performed by everyone at the same time without the need for deep, individual transformation. And so the method was gradually replaced by the ritual. The alignment was replaced by the liturgy. The lived experience was replaced by the creed. This is the tragedy of institutional religion. It became obsessed with the cup and completely forgot the water inside. It became much easier to train priests to perform a ceremony than to train them to guide a soul into the silence of the inner room, especially when many of those teachers had never entered it themselves. Think about the structure of modern prayer. It is designed for the masses. It is built on repetition, on memorization, on forms you can follow without ever having to develop the interior capacity that Jesus was actually describing. But here is the deeper truth. The system doesn't want you to find the inner room, because the person who finds the inner room becomes an operator of their own reality. The person who achieves true alignment with the source no longer needs a middleman. They no longer need an institution to tell them if they are worthy or if their prayers are being heard. A soul in total alignment is a soul that is liberated. And for a system built on conformity and control, individual liberation is a threat. This is why the door was locked tight, not because the truth was deleted from the text, but because the practice, the actual how, was allowed to fade into the shadows of monasteries and hermitages. The church kept the words of Jesus, but it lost his mechanics. It kept the promise of the kingdom, but it forgot the map to the treasury. Most religious education today teaches you how to be a consumer of faith. It teaches you to sit, to listen, and to beg. But it does not teach you how to be a vessel of power. It does not teach you that the door to the Father is not at the altar of a cathedral, but behind the veil of your own conscious mind. The method was forgotten because it was too quiet for a world that loves noise. It was too powerful for a system that loves hierarchy. But the words of Jesus remain in the text like a time capsule, waiting for anyone brave enough to stop looking at the cup and start looking for the water. The door has been locked for a long time, but you have always held the key. It's time to stop standing in the courtyard and finally walk inside. But I know for many of you, closing the door doesn't feel as easy as it sounds. You sit down, you close your eyes, and instead of God's presence, you find a chaotic list of to-dos, old arguments, and fears about tomorrow. You feel frustrated. You think you failed. You think the method doesn't work for someone with a mind as loud as yours. But here is what you must hew. The mistake isn't the noise in your head. The mistake is the battle you are fighting against it. You cannot force silence. You cannot fight your way into peace. Think about it. If you use your will to push a thought away, you are still operating from the ego. You are using effort. You are using tension. And in the inner room, effort is an intruder. Tension is a barrier. When you try to evict a thought by force, you are simply giving that thought more energy. You are adding more noise to the very room you are trying to quiet. Closing the door is not an act of violence. It'll lie an act of recognition. Instead of fighting, try this. When a thought arises, and it will, do not judge it. Do not be angry with yourself. Simply look at it. Recognize no. Think of your thoughts as clouds passing across the vast, silent sky of your mind. You are not the clouds, you are the sky. Smile at the thought, acknowledge its presence, and then, gently, without any force at all, turn your attention back to your breath, back to the stillness that exists underneath the chatter. If you sit for 10 minutes and your mind wanders 100 times, do not be discouraged. Every time you notice the wander and return to the silence, you are performing a sacred act. Those aren't 100 failures. Those are 100 victories. Nung La, 100 times you chose the source over the ego. Those are 100 times you practiced the art of non-resistance. The Tameion is not made of stone and mortar. It is made of surrender. You don't get there by being good at focusing. You get there by being willing to return. Stop struggling to be still. Stop trying to be the person who has no thoughts. Devajo, be the space in which the thoughts appear and disappear. The Father doesn't require your perfection, He requires your presence. The door doesn't open because you pushed hard enough. It opens because you finally stop pushing and learn to be still. There is a question that weighs heavy on every heart watching this. What about the ones I love? What about my brother in pain or my sister fighting for her life? If prayer is about an internal shift, does that mean I am powerless to help those outside of me? The answer is found in a truth that most modern teaching completely ignores. In the inner room, there is no outside. You were taught that intercessory prayer is like sending a letter to a distant office, hoping someone will read it and intervene in your friend's life. You plead for their healing. You cry for their rescue. But notice what you are doing in those moments. You are focusing on their disease. You are vibrating with the fear of their loss. You are reinforcing the very tragedy you are trying to change. You are not a messenger. You are a vessel. You are not a petitioner. You are a transmitter. When you enter the Tameion and close the door, you are stepping into the place where all of us are one. You are entering the source from which every life flows. And from that place, you don't pray for them from the outside. You establish a reality for them from the inside. This is the secret of the vessel. When you achieve total alignment, you become a station through which the power of the Father flows unobstructed. You aren't asking God to look down on your loved one. You are becoming the doorway through which heaven touches them. Try this. Bring your loved one into the inner room with you. Close the door to the doctor's report. Close the door to the physical symptoms. Close the door to the fear of what if. Instead of seeing them as a victim of a disease, see them as the perfection of the Father. Instead of begging for a future healing, give thanks, in the past tense, that their restoration is already a finished fact in the realm of cause. Father, I thank you that you have heard me concerning them. Your stillness becomes their strength. Your alignment becomes their authority. You are not trying to convince a distant God to act. You are recognizing that the work is already done. When you heal the division within yourself, you create a space for their healing to manifest. Love is not a sentiment, it is a frequency. And when you tune your heart to the frequency of the finished miracle, you become the lighthouse that guides them home. Don't pray for the world. Pray as the one who knows the world is already held in the Father's hand. Your journey from a beggar at the gates to an operator of reality begins with a single breath. The kingdom of heaven is not a distant reward. It is the state of consciousness you carry in your heart right now. When you live from the inner room, your life stops being a series of requests and becomes a permanent state of alignment. But this awakening cannot stop with you. We live in a world drowning in the noise of fear and lack. If this truth moves something within you, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone searching for the way. Every share is a key that helps another soul stop begging and start being. Let's transform this world from want to abundance together. Now, go be still and discover the power waiting in the silence.